Okay, now I just want to say that after the last times I reviewed animated films, this is finally the first time I review something that is more recent. Like, I'm now analyzing a newly released animated film in theaters, directly to home media, on a streaming service, or on premium video on demand as of the coronavirus pandemic that's going on across the globe right now. Now, with that out of the way, let's get things started. Now, if you have already seen some of my videos or even looked on my DeviantArt page, some of you may know that I am a major Phineas and Ferb fan myself. I collected all of the DVDs, I have this poster and coloring page on my walls, I have the Learn to Draw book, and I've watched the show wherever it would be available, including on Disney+. And speaking of Disney Plus, they now have a new movie subtitled Candace Against the Universe. To tell you all about my experiences with anything that would be related to Phineas and Ferb, here's what I've got. Out of all the shows made by Disney, Phineas and Ferb is probably one of the most iconic, right up there with DuckTales and Kim Possible. Back in the late 2000s, this show brought about a new age to TV animation. If it weren't for Phineas and Ferb, we wouldn't have shows like Adventure Time, Regular Show, My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, Bob's Burgers, Gravity Falls, Steven Universe, Rick and Morty, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, The Loud House, the new DuckTales, Hilda, DC Superhero Girls, Amphibia, and so much more! Anyways, when it comes to my thoughts, on my first watch back when the show was new, of course I stand by that opinion. However, I slightly didn't watch as much of it back then, but it wasn't until years later when I became fully obsessed with it. The characters have a lot of their moments, the animation is creative and colorful, the songs are very catchy, and the plot of each episode, while it is consistent and formulaic, has merits that make it work very well. It's like Scooby-Doo in a way, where as formulaic as it can get, it can often work. I even remember when I watched the first movie, Across the Second Dimension, on TV back in 2011, and I can say the same thing here. Along with every other good thing about the show, that movie also comes with intense action, even from the Second Dimension versions of the characters. There were even two crossover specials with Marvel and Star Wars that were fun to watch as well. If that's not enough, I've also watched Milo Murphy's Law, and I could say it's almost on par with its predecessor. While taking on a new perspective, it has the same quality of writing and heart as Phineas. Not to mention that the show had a freaking awesome crossover, on top of containing numerous appearances from characters like Doofenshmirtz, Perry, and Major Monogram throughout its second season. But now the time has come that Phineas and Ferb are making their grand return in their own new second movie to face a new intergalactic threat heard round the world on Disney+. So now that the boys are back in town and Candace is going against the universe, how did Phineas and Ferb do it all? Is it out of this world as an alien spaceship? Or is this something worth a call to Mom to get Phineas and Ferb busted? Whew, my god, that's a lot of words. Anyways, let's go to it, shall we? Yes guys, as the title suggests, this movie is all about Candace, and she's finally about to conquer the universe when the universe is against her. But in all seriousness though, this movie is set in the same summer as the series and follows the titular main characters along with their friends as they set out to outer space to a far distant planet known as Feeblau to save their sister Candace, who has been abducted by aliens and finds new life on that planet after she realizes that the universe is against her. On one hand, I wouldn't really say that this kind of plot is all that original, since it has already been done before in Nickelodeon's Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. You've got this plot about the main character, who is an inventor and recruits some friends to go into outer space and save another family relative who is abducted by aliens led by the villain, complete with this movie's very own King Goobot with super big doctor. But on the other hand, the execution of this plot is actually better than you can imagine. Although this idea may seem unoriginal, it allows the movie to present the situation in a much larger scale, also delivering as much intensity and action as what you're normally accustomed to on television. However, the action is not the only thing the movie is focused on. While it is a big factor as to how engaging it is, it also contains many other elements that help the story stand powerful. For example, let's take a look at the relationship between the characters. I'll get into this more when I get to the characters by each, but there are many ways that the movie gives out the heart as the plot progresses, like the boys and Candace's trust and love for one another, Doofenshmirtz and how he truly cares about the kids and Perry when he's not doing his evil schemes, along with how he is a kind father figure to Vanessa, how Candace and Super Big Doctor first meet, Isabella's rivalry with Doofenshmirtz, and many more. However, since this is another film adaptation of Phineas and Ferb, as well as a film adaptation of an animated comedy series, it also has to come with plenty of laughs, and man were the crew successful with their goal. A majority of this film is filled with gags that when they get entertaining, they are very well done. They all come in a very large range, as they can be of any kind. They can be clever, they can be witty, they can be relatable, unpredictable, subtle, slapstick, it never ends there. Now, if there is one slight minor nitpick I would give about the writing, it's that there are a few gags that might probably miss their mark as time moves on. Since this is a recent animated film released in 2020, the movie does contain a few jokes and pop culture references that are designed to be more accustomed for that period. Plus, as this movie does make some subtle references to the series, there may be some tiny moments that those who don't watch the show wouldn't really understand. But when we get near the end of the movie, well, the only thing I can say about that is, if you've cried at the end of the series, then I would suggest that you get ready for round 2, because this movie is equally as emotional as both Across the Second Dimension and the last few episodes of the show. The story may have an idea that's already been done before in another animated film, but with tons of hilarity, action, intensity, heartwarming moments, and the power to be highly engaging, it does everything it can to keep the spirit of Phineas and Ferb strong with the marvelous writing it is known for. Considering that this is a movie based on an animated series, this is the part that will be a bit tricky for me as a critic. I think we all know that when it comes to most animated films based on animated series, their animation can still maintain that TV quality, thus making it look a bit cheap. However, most of these movies do have plenty of elements that give the animation a quality boost from the show, like DuckTales the movie, Jetsons the movie, The Simpsons movie, and Teen Titans Go to the movies. As for Candace Against the Universe, this is one of those movies. Yes, it is true that this film still does retain some of the same quality as the series, such as the simplistic designs of the characters, and of course there is some limited animation incorporated into the movements, but it is easy to tell that the animation in Phineas and Ferb did get a bit of a quality boost. Although the character animation can sometimes be limited, the movie does have some moments where it suddenly becomes a lot more expressive and fluent, especially when the characters move at a fast pace.
Wait a minute! Phineas and Ferb!
But one thing that really got a major upgrade from the TV series would be the backgrounds that Phineas and Ferb get themselves immersed in. The film gives the audience an opportunity to experience a new view on such places as Danville and Feebleoot for something that is larger than life. Even the art presented in the backgrounds got an upgrade, where now the daytime sky is no longer just a solid color like in the series, and many of the textures look better than ever, right to the point where it's reminiscent of the background textures in Milo Murphy's Law. It even has a feeling of a grand scale surrounding all the characters within their environment, especially in the movie's grand finale. Next is the use of computer animation. Like in the series, it's rare that the movie would use CGI, but this is mostly for the purpose of effects, like the spinning spaceship, the asteroids that surround the ship, Candace riding her bike in the opening, and the canoe that the characters turn into a flying machine. This is the kind of animation where you'd swear it was made to be displayed on the big screen, despite being made for a streaming service like Disney+. The kind that emphasizes on being huge, not only the team situation and whatever is in jeopardy, but also the grand view of the town and what the characters must do on their mission. If there is one thing I would like to question about the animation, it's that there are some parts in the movie where the characters can look weird and off-model and the lines can get thicker and suddenly switch back to normal. However, there are some good reasons for this. First off, keep in mind that this movie was animated at 3 different studios, including Snipple Animation Studios, Yearn Productions, and Synergy Animation. And the second reason is because due to the COVID-19 pandemic, many of the animators from those studios had to spend their time at home to fix up a lot of the animation and send it overseas, so you can tell that they did the best they could with the materials they had to work with. By Phineas and Ferb standards, the visuals are better than ever. By animation standards, it ain't the best, but it's still impressive to look at.
And action!
As we are talking about Phineas and Ferb, these characters don't necessarily need an introduction, because if you've seen the show yourself, then chances are you know who these characters are. As of this time, we're all very familiar with what's in store with the triangle-headed and inventive Phineas, the man-of-action Ferb, the control-freakish yet good-hearted Candace, the top-secret Perry the Platypus, the passionate and helpful Isabella, the intelligent and sometimes nervous Baljeet, the big bruiser Buford, and the goofy but diabolical Dr. Doofenshmirtz. We already know who they are as characters, but the question is, what can this movie do to add more to what we already love about them? Well, as I stated earlier, one of the major driving forces of the feature is the relationship and friendship they have with each other. Let's start off with the star of the movie, Candace. While she's not the main character of the movie, it looks upon her relationship with Phineas and Ferb and her need to find a place where she feels like the people living there actually care about her, which is why she would move on and meet the aliens of Feeblaoot. Isabella, Phineas's future love interest and the scout leader of the Fireside Girls, forms a rivalry with Doofenshmirtz regarding who is the better leader when they first meet, but they later begin to develop as the film progresses. And then you have the main characters Phineas and Ferb themselves. As the film goes on, they both show how much they love Candace and how they believe her to be the most important sister in the world. In this movie, you can tell that they love Candace with all their heart, but it shows that sometimes its limits can be there, which can result in some of its strongest moments. I may not have mentioned the rest yet, like Baljeet and his love for space adventure, Buford and his running gag with his canoe, and Perry who has to look after the other characters on their journey. But other than that, if there are any new characters that are made specifically for the feature, the only notable one that's really worth mentioning is the villain of the movie, literally named Super Big Doctor, because clearly the writers have to come up with such a long name for a villain this threatening. She's the ruler of Feeblaoot, who is an alien with a high amount of power over her kingdom, and does everything she can to enslave and imprison anyone who stands in her way, even precious little siblings. With the other inhabitants of Danville, they all appear to show the character in them, but there are some non-viewers who might be left confused and might not get the joke some of them deliver as they don't watch the series. You'll be very lucky since most of them don't make an impact on the story, as many of them are only there for cameo purposes. The characters are not only well displayed in a feature film, but they also become even more developed and sustainable for both fans of the show and non-fans to have fun with. If there's one thing the series is very well known for, it's being a musical with many catchy songs. As for this movie, you can't have Phineas and Ferb without any songs, and this one manages to deliver on that aspect. Not only do these songs continue the tradition of being very energetic, but they are very easy to follow as the characters embark on their journey. First off, there's the opening number, Such a Beautiful Day, which shows how Candace wants to have the best day of her life without being interrupted by one of Phineas and Ferb's inventions. It is a very good way to open a movie with a song, especially with the mix of pop rock when Candace is enjoying her day and hard rock when in her busting mode.
The sun is shining, not a cloud in the sky. My stars are aligning, and I swear that I could do anything on such a beautiful day.
Next up is The Universe Is Against Me, a song that never made it into the original series. It's quite an interesting tune as it looks upon Candace and how she feels after she fails to bust her brothers as if everyone turned their backs on her.
The universe is against me, and no one here defends me, and everyone pretends we haven't seen it all before.
Candace?
Yeah?
Meet Our Leader is a Broadway-style number in which a group of alien singers introduce Candace to Super Big Doctor. Although there is a brief dated reference in here, it is still a really fun tune that emulates the style of a Broadway musical.
You'll be blown away, so put your phone away. You're gonna say, wow, holy cow. You're about to meet her, our glorious leader. You're about to meet her eyes.
Then there's Adulting, which is a duet between Isabella and Doofenshmirtz about their rivalry over who assumes the role of leader. As it is a bop to listen to, it also has some funny moments.
You think you know just what to do, but I've got a ton more experience than you in adulting.
Is that what it's called?
This Is Our Battle Song is an epic marching song in which the gang prepares to battle against Super Big Doctor with the imprisoned creatures they assemble.
This is our battle song. We're gonna give you guys what for. You might think you can defeat us. Your defenses have some heft. But the thing that we won't tell you as you're fighting on the left.
And finally, you have Us Against the Universe, which serves as the grand finale of Phineas and Ferb's adventure. You know that this song is the perfect way to end the movie when you have everyone living in Danville all coming together just to perform this one giant musical number.
If you're out there on your own, you just might take it on the chin. But if it's us against the universe, we win.
Other songs that I would like to mention include Unsung Hero, which is a very peaceful tune to listen to as we see Perry destroying the meteor shower to protect the main characters from getting their ship crashed. Girls' Day Out, when Candace and Super Big Doctor are hanging out and enjoying life on the planet of Feebleoop. And We're Back, the song used to both promote the movie and serve as a closing song.
Nobody sees him, he's not looking for glory, he's not looking for applause. Unwind, so get ready, we can lay out again for many pennies.
It feels so good to be where we belong. I guess that's the main bullet point of this little song. We're tuned up and right on track. Baby, we're back. Baby, we're back.
There is one song that I'd rather not mention for spoiler reasons, but all I can say is that if you've seen Milo Murphy's Law, then chances are you might have heard the song before. Regardless if they're short or long, these songs truly succeed in continuing the grand tradition that the show is known for, as well as making the musical experience of Phineas and Ferb all the more phenomenal. I'm gonna be honest here. It wasn't easy for me to make this review. The reason why is because, as we all know, we have not gotten a lot of animated features this summer, if not this year, especially at a time like this where a pandemic is causing many movies to get screwed over, like when Onward became Pixar's biggest box office bomb since The Good Dinosaur, Trolls World Tour and Scoob were released digitally instead of theaters, and the SpongeBob movie Sponge on the Run got only released in Canada, while everyone else has to wait until next year to watch it. Some were considered decent and some were considered mediocre. But then I found hope, where this movie came along to make this summer all worth it by ending it with a major bang. Not only is Phineas and Ferb the movie Candace Against the Universe a great comeback to one of Disney's best animated TV shows, but it is also a fine example of how to make an animated film based on an animated series and do it right. Right in the veins of films such as South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, the SpongeBob SquarePants movies, and the Simpsons movie. The story is highly engaging, humorous, and action-packed while also containing several strong and heartfelt moments that will make you laugh and cry. The characters are as memorable as in the series, along with the new ones. The songs are energetic and unforgettable in every way, and the animation, while it may still have that TV flair to it, has some points that elevate the quality as if it was made to be shown in theaters. If you are a fan of the works of Dan Povenmire and Jeff Swampy Marsh, including Milo Murphy's Law, or if you want a fun movie that can also deliver some great laughs, then this movie is a high recommendation. But on the other hand though, I will say that you don't necessarily have to watch the show in order to enjoy the movie, but it would help a bit more if you have a general knowledge of what Phineas and Ferb is all about. The only people who shouldn't go check this out are those that hate Phineas and Ferb because, well, at the end of the day, this is still Phineas and Ferb related. Will there be more Phineas and Ferb content after this? At this point, who knows? But the second movie has proven that Phineas and Ferb is no longer a beloved TV show, but it has now become one of the greatest franchises that Disney has ever put out. And that is why I am giving Candace Against the Universe a 9.5 out of 10. And for the longest time both this summer and this year, in terms of recent animated films in 2020, I have been holding on to the Dirksen stamp of approval, waiting for that one film to come out and both surprise me and amaze me by shedding more light to the year where many animated films didn't really come out as amazing, and many movies are being ruined by the coronavirus pandemic. I am more than happy to finally give it to this film. You know, it makes me happy that this is the first time I review something recent and I give it the Dirksen stamp of approval. And after this one, I just gotta say that I'm glad I found something good to check out once again. Especially after last time, when I had to come face to face with possibly the mother of all bad animated films, Food Fight. So hopefully the next one turns out to be a big surprise. And to end this off, I just want to say, Dan, Swampy, if you're ever watching this, I have been a longtime fan of your work, and with this movie, you've made me proud. The characters you both have created over the years will always be family to you, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and your projects. And that's all I've got. See you guys later. And remember, animation gives you power. Be proud, be famous.
We're back in our own backyard. We're gonna make the most of every day. We've got plans, they may be avant-garde, but you know we're gonna do them anyway. It feels so good to be where we belong. I guess that's the main.
It's me against the universe.